Okay, hello. I am trying to go live today to do an interview with Laura of Simply AIP. So I'm gonna try, we're having some technical difficulties, so I'm trying it from my page here. So let's see. Bear with me for a second. Whoop. Okay, so Laura, if you are on, let me know. Let's see. Okay. Oh
Hey!
my gosh.
It
We
worked!
did it. Okay. I have
Yay!
no idea.
And oh my gosh, we
Yes.
match.
I have been secretly laughing the whole time because you couldn't see me and I was wearing the exact same outfit as you. So too funny.
How
Okay,
fun.
so yeah, sorry, I don't know what was going on there, but I'm glad this is working now.
I know, me too. I'm super excited. So thank you so much. It kind of feels weird, like me interviewing you, and I'm in the little box, but that's okay.
I know.
Yeah, it's fun. That's okay. It's so fun. Yeah. So thank you so much for being on tonight. So I've introduced you a couple times on other videos, but Christina is a registered health nurse and or sorry, a registered nurse, an AIP certified
Combo.
holistic
Yeah.
health coach. Yes. And she has an amazing podcast on iTunes, on the Apple podcast, and it's Live Well with Christina Tidwell. And she just has, I mean, it's a pretty new podcast. It's only been around for a few months, but she has already had like the most amazing AIP and health guests already. Like I'm just like blown away with the guests you've had. That's
Yeah.
incredible. Yeah, so I just wanted to get you on here and have you share your story first of all, and then tell us a little bit
Mhm.
more about what health coaching is and how you can help people. But first of all, I want to know more about you and your story. Tell us.
Yeah, definitely. And that's where a lot of this starts, I think, with a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
that have gotten into health coaching or autoimmune health coaching. Oftentimes it's because they've gone through some of those health issues themselves. So it's definitely been the case for me. I write a lot about my experience and my story, but for those of you who have never met me before, um, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease when I was about 18 called adult onset Still's disease. And it's a lot of you may not have heard of it. It's kind of a more rare, less common autoimmune disease. And it presents as high spiking fevers, like chills, high spiking fevers, sweats, some achiness, um, and that fatigue that I think a lot of us know with autoimmunity. So that was a big surprise because that happened to me when I was 8 years old. I'm 18 years old. I was really quite healthy, exercising, playing a bunch of soccer and running, and I started to feel like I had these really vague flu-like symptoms. And went about 2 weeks and was like, okay, I think this might be more than the flu, as it kept progressing on and on and on. And if anyone with Still's disease or anyone knows anyone with fevers like this, they can be really brutal, really debilitating and exhausting. So I was finally admitted to hospital and was in the hospital here in Seattle about maybe 3 weeks before they really were able to figure out what was going on, which I know for a lot of people it's way longer than 3 weeks, but
That's long.
yeah, a long time, because I think, like a lot of us with autoimmune disease, um, they were unsure, like, is this an infectious disease? What's really going on here to this like seemingly healthy 18-year-old girl. And I was discharged from the hospital with a diagnosis of, at the time, juvenile rheumatoid arthritis is the diagnosis they gave me, and later it kind of morphed into Still's disease because of these cyclical fevers. It's an activation of the innate immune response. So it's a little bit different. It's just this like really heavy-handed, huge immune response in Still's disease. So I was discharged from the hospital just in time, because I wanted to go to my high school graduation. So I probably should have stayed a little longer, but I was like, I want to get out to be able to do this, as sick as I am.
Yeah.
And so, so from there, I say a lot of times, we think a diagnosis of is kind of the beginning, but a lot of times is like the end. Is like the end, but a lot of times, I really feel like it is the beginning, and figuring out like, whoa, what the heck just happened to me, and then how do I move on from here? So that was my experience early on with it, and then it's since really morphed and changed, and it's been a whole journey from there. But that was the initial Still's disease diagnosis and experience.
Wow. That's especially as an 18-year-old, and you're just trying to figure out life in general and graduating high school and so much going on, that I can imagine how overwhelming that would have been.
Yeah.
Wow. So had you already wanted to be a nurse before that, or did that spark something in you?
That definitely was a big catalyst for not only what I do now, but for becoming a nurse. So, when I was discharged from the hospital, I was really sick, and on I think at one point I was on 100 milligrams of prednisone daily, which is like insanity. You feel horrible. And, and I my fevers were kind of getting controlled, and I was taking a lot of different, trialing different methotrexate or different biologic medications or whatever to control these crazy fevers. And I think I went through about a year of that, of just going from doctor to doctor, just trying to figure out different medications. And it wasn't really until, I had a nurse practitioner that I went to one day instead of my rheumatologist. And I was speaking to her, it had been about a year. I was dealing with all this stuff. And I told her, kind of told her my whole story and everything that had been going on. And she just kind of stopped and was like, wow. Because in the midst of all this too, I got a pulmonary embolism, a blood clot in my lung from birth control, which is weirdly related to autoimmunity and the inflammatory response. But there was a lot of things that happened. And she was like, wow, that's a lot. You've been through a lot. How are you doing with everything? And she was seriously the first person that had asked me that in the course of that whole year. And I remember I started speaking to her like, actually not so great. Like, my stomach hurts. I have a lot of anxiety. I can tell these medications are doing something, but they're not doing everything. And so she gave me like a little bit of guidance and kind of introduced me to the idea that I might have a little bit of control over my health, which previously I was like, oh no, it's none of my business. I'm sure you know that feeling too.
Yep.
Yeah, where you're kind of like, so it was just this kind of spark of like, oh, I can make a decision, or there's things I can do on a daily basis that might affect my health, which honestly, it sounds super sad, but I didn't know. And so from there, I was like, okay, this nurse practitioner is amazing. And I decided that I wanted to become a nurse so I could help people in the way that she helped me. And then was nursing for a while. I lived in Australia for a while, so that's where I got my master's of nursing. And then I was in intensive care nursing, long-term rehab nursing, taking care of really sick people with heart and lung transplants, and a lot of bypass graft surgeries, and I did that for, you know, I've been a nurse now for like 7 years, and I realized that I was helping for sure, but I just kept having this nagging feeling like I wanted to be on the preventative side of healthcare, that's where my efforts and my expertise would best be used. So I had been figuring out how to do that for a while. Slowly trying to understand. Yeah. And I know that that's something that you and I had talked about is when we did our podcast interview about the healthcare system and how, you know, it does a really good job with more acute conditions like infections or broken bones or things like that, where we can easily get a quick fix. But when it comes to chronic autoimmunity, sometimes we get lost and it doesn't do the best job. So I think working in that, a combination of working in that system for many years and then going through it myself as a patient for many years, I realized what was needed, where the gaps were, and how I could fill in to really help people in the way that I had, you know, been able to help myself over. It's been like, maybe like 13 years or something since then. So it's been a journey.
Yeah, it is a journey. It is. And I mean, isn't it so amazing? Like when somebody finally, when you're like, that person listened to me, like they really listened and cared what I said and went just beyond the listing symptoms or whatever, you know, that like, wow, they're really hearing me, you know? And that's amazing that you got that, because a lot of people don't ever, or it takes so long. And then for people to be able to get that from you too, you know, what a cool thing.
Yeah.
So, so now you're an AAP certified health coach. So tell everybody exactly what that means.
Yeah, it's a good question, because I think the term health coach is relatively still kind of new in our healthcare system. But in my humble opinion, health coaching is a necessary extension of the healthcare system, and it's what's needed to kind of solve this chronic illness crisis that we're in. So it's basically like if you have ever gone to the doctor and felt like you've been super rushed, you know, they've only had 15 minutes to see what's going on, and you've started to tell them all these issues and you've forgotten half the things you went in for, and they're like, okay, well, you should probably just get some more sleep and reduce your stress, and they give you an Ambien and a Xanax or something, you know. I'm super simplifying it, but that can sometimes be the experience.
Kind of, not really though. So,
yeah, like sometimes, you know, and I think despite everybody's best intentions, like, you know, practitioners and physicians' best intentions, the way our system is set up is we don't have the time to go through all of these complex issues together, right? Like they only have 15 minutes to see all these people that have been crammed in their schedule. So everybody's kind of doing the best they can, we think and hope. And so health coaching is kind of an extension of this care. So you know, health coaching is basically, I work with clients one-on-one through diet, lifestyle shifts, and then this piece of personal empowerment, or kind of becoming your own advocate, because I find that we need to come at it from a holistic approach and really look at, you know, the ways that we can control how we feel on a daily basis, which is kind of all these like really foundational things, like what we put in our bodies, you know, what foods work for us and what don't, which ones don't, the health of our digestive system, our sleep, our stress and our nervous system, our relationships, all of these different pieces that, you know, a doctor, even an integrative or functional doctor, doesn't necessarily have the time to really deep dive and go through all of these pieces together. And what I find with autoimmune disease is that it is complex and it requires this sort of multifaceted approach, because I'm sure, you know this too, like when I think of because people are like, oh, you're so much better, you're not on medications. What did you do? And like, there's so many things combined that I did,
Yeah.
and I'm still doing,
Right.
you know, that are really important. And one of the biggest pieces of this all is being able to have support and have someone that can guide you through this process. Because another piece is that there is good information out there about autoimmune disease and diet and lifestyle, but there's so much conflicting information that I think we get, like really overwhelmed. And I've felt that way. And the thing is that we're also, you know, I've coached hundreds and hundreds of women now, and we're all so uniquely individual that there's no such thing as a one size fits all approach. And that's kind of what we're used to expecting from our medical system. So health coaching is more of a way to work together one-on-one over a period of time to really address some of these root cause issues that might be causing to, you know, or contributing to imbalance in your body that's causing your immune system to not regulate itself and go on overdrive. And we have time, you know, to go through these pieces together and to kind of create a plan of action that works specifically for you, which is totally different than for me or someone else who has Still's disease or, you know, like rheumatoid arthritis or whatever.
Right.
So that's kind of a little bit more about what health coaching is. And if anyone has more questions too, they can put them in the chat as well. And I just recorded another video about it because I feel so passionate about it that it's like what we need. It's what's, you know, it's been really helpful for me, and just to be able to explain it more. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, I love that. So what do you think are kind of the top issues that you work with on people, or like their biggest challenges? What do you kind of see over and over again that people are like really struggling with?
That people are struggling with? Yeah. So, I mean, most of like the symptoms that people come to me with are things like, I mean, fatigue. That is probably the overarching symptom of like any autoimmune disease or any maybe human that's living on the planet. So fatigue, you know, a lot of times digestive issues, autoimmune disease like thyroid disease, rheumatoid arthritis, more systemic autoimmune diseases, and a lot of people that also have some vague autoimmune symptoms like brain fog or, you know, maybe blood sugar issues or like inflammation or pain or heat, and they've kind of been told that since they don't meet criteria for any disease conditions, that there's nothing that can be done and that they need to wait and monitor until it gets worse. And so where I come in is like, no, we don't want to wait for something to get worse.
You don't want to get worse.
You know?
You already feel so bad, right?
Yeah. So that's where it's like our pathophysiology model of healthcare kind of lets us down in these times because it's all focused about what disease do you have. And so unfortunately, if you don't have a certain disease, there's no treatment option for you. And that's where I see a lot of people get lost, and it's really can be really discouraging. And so what I do is not say, okay, well, let's wait till you have that disease so we can give you the medication for it. It's more, okay, what's going on with your body now, and how can we intervene now, and, you know, change up your diet or find a diet that works for you, that's like sustainable, and look at these other root cause issues so we can just improve how you feel before it gets to that stage.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, because basically if you're already going to the doctor about it, you're already saying, you know, I'm at a point that enough is enough. Because, you know, I'll tell you, like, I struggled through a lot of my symptoms. I mean, I struggled through for like 2 years before I went to the doctor. Like, most women have probably already just been in pain for a long time before they break down and say, okay, I've got to get help from somebody. And then for doctors to just say, I don't know, and let's see if it gets worse. Like, you're already at your breaking point, basically, by the time you go in. So, like, waiting, I mean, that just, you know, it's kind of unbearable at that point. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what are some of the strategies that you would use with some, I mean, I know it depends on like what exactly is going on with a person, but like I know like nutrition and AIP is definitely some things you work on with people. Are there other kind of strategies that you might work on with people?
Yeah, definitely. What you asked earlier was like, what do people, what are the main issues that people have? The other thing I was thinking is like, a lot of times people, we kind of sometimes know what to do. Like we know we should eat more vegetables, or we know we should avoid sugar or Diet Coke, but the actual issue is doing it. And so that's hard. That can be hard. And so a lot what I work with people on is, so definitely that piece of education and figuring out what's going to work for you and looking to root cause. But also what I see is a lot of people have kind of been doing this thing, and I've done it too. I'm guilty of it, so I know deeply, but like where you're kind of on and off the wagon, where you're like, oh, I'm going to do Whole30. And then the day after Whole30, you do the opposite of Whole30. And then, or I'm going to do AIP, but once I start to, once life starts to happen and the holidays come up and events happen, or major stressors happen, then you feel like you fall off the wagon, and you don't really know how to live in this gray area. So it kind of, even when using healing diets, which can be so beneficial like AIP, figuring out how to use it in a way that is realistic and sustainable for you is really key. And so that's a big part of the support that I give to people, is like really figuring out how to make it sustainable and realistic, because that's the goal, is like, this is this is your life, and you don't want to feel like you're constantly restricting or feeling deprived. So yeah, like kind of going back to what you're saying, like I do a more in-depth, I guess, like health history, and kind of looking at where you're at right now. And from there, like I said, everyone's different. So AIP is a great tool. Like I have used that for myself. It's been really helpful. But not everybody needs that at a certain point, but it's an awesome tool. So I use that with people, but sometimes it's just, it's figuring out a lot of times, not only what you're eating, but also how you're eating and how your digestive system is absorbing what you're eating. So I work a lot with gut health, because specifically with autoimmune disease, we know that 70% of our immune system lies in the area around our gut. So if anything's going on with our immune system, we know to look to the gut or digestive system, which is not something we've always thought. So that's a big part, is not just what you're eating, but in a sense, how you're eating, your attitudes to eating, and also how your body is breaking down and absorbing it. So that's a big focus of kind of the first part of my program when I work with people. But like I said, we keep it really holistic and looking at all different areas. Stress with autoimmune disease is a huge one, like maybe even more important than food.
Yeah. I agree. I know I feel so much worse on like during stressful times, and it can really make things flare and feel worse, and definitely. And it's so hard when people are just like, don't be stressed out. Like, okay.
I know. I'm like, oh, that stresses me out. So I know. And I think the way I approach this like stress piece of it is a little bit more, not just saying like, or just reduce your stress or work on your stress, but really figuring out sources of stress, when you're stressed, when you're not, toning your, like understanding your nervous system, your sympathetic and your parasympathetic, when it's activated. Because most of my clients are in the sympathetic like 80-90% of the time. And it's once we start to understand that and shift towards a more parasympathetic state, and there's a lot of different ways to like tangibly do that, that's when a lot of healing starts to occur. Because your body's kind of in a place where you can be eating like the most beautiful AIP diet in the whole world, but if you are under a tremendous amount of stress on a daily basis, if you're experiencing abuse or trauma, or literally if you just have a really stressful job and you don't have any downtime or any rest and your nervous system is constantly revved up, we almost, it's hard because we're not in that parasympathetic state. And so our body just isn't able to kind of rest, digest, heal, do the things it needs to do, because it's always secreting these stress hormones and it's geared up to run from a tiger in the jungle, you know, even though it's like an office meeting. So that that piece is underestimated, but like again, I think it's really helpful to have some support and help, because it's there are tangible ways to help moderate the stress or help your body react to it better, not like make it magically go away without feeling like you have to quit your job and move to a desert island. Like there are things you can do. And so that's where I think it's helpful to have a guide in that, because figuring out all of these pieces can be pretty isolating and lonely and overwhelming as well. So feeling like you've got someone to kind of offload some of this to, that you don't have to figure it all out in your head, I think is really helpful for a lot of people. And I've seen huge shifts in people and clients that have, you know, been down this road a long time with the right diet and supplement, everything. And once we figure out this nervous system stress piece, it's amazing what happens. So I'm a big believer in that.
That is awesome. I love it. I was a psychology major in college, so
me too.
This is like super fascinating to me.
Yeah.
I love this part of it. Yeah, and I think it is a really difficult part, because like with the nutrition, it can be very black and white. Like, okay, these are the rules, these are the list of foods, whatever. But like mindset stuff and stress and things like that, I mean, that is like so many layers deep, and you know, like there's so much deeper things to it, and it can be, like you said, so much harder to resolve than just what's on your plate. So absolutely. And it's something that you can't just, you know, think like, okay, be less stressed, you know, like it goes so much beyond that. So, and you do need so much support too. I do think in AIP, you need so much support, and you can get it from family and friends, but you need it from people who really understand too. And people who can help you through it. So whether that's a coach or somebody else, like if you don't have somebody filling that space, a coach might be a good option for you. So that's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, especially going through AIP, or any healing diet, I find it really helpful and important for people to know that you, even within the strict AIP, it can be kind of tailored and customized to you based on how you're reacting to it and dealing with it. So that's one thing I would say to you, is that that can be really beneficial. And there's tons of good AIP coaches. I went through that training program, and there's a lot of really awesome people that were trained in the specifics of it. So you really, there's, you know, to be able to be guided through that, if you can and need the support, I think is really, can be a really good idea, because it can seem really daunting and overwhelming, but then also having that piece where it's being tailored to you, so it might be a little bit more effective in that case.
Awesome. And I mean, I know you were trained by Nikki Trescott and Angie Alt, and they're amazing. So I know you got really great training from that. So tell people how they can find you. So if they're looking for a health coach or want more information on it, where do they find you?
So we're broadcasting from my page now.
Yes.
So I'm here on Facebook. They'll be able to see that. I think everyone is simply AIP. We can share that. And then my website is christinatidwell.com. And so I always offer free 30-minute sessions with people just to chat so I can hear more about your story and what's been going on for you, and can give you a little bit of guidance, kind of which direction to go. So that's out there. That's an option. I love doing those discovery calls, and being able to help people. So you can book that in on my website. And then what else? I've got the podcast, and I'll put up our episode too again, so people can listen to that, because that was fantastic to hear more about your story. And I just love what you're doing with Simply IAP, like giving that joy and convenience, and it's so wonderful. So
thanks.
Yeah.
And you've got, is it a 1 week meal plan too for AIP? Is that right?
Yes, I have and I can I made a batch cooking meal plan I put together because I had so many clients, and then my style of cooking is like quick and dirty, healthy. Like I can't, I'm no fancy chef. So I put together a batch cooking meal plan that is just kind of a guide to make it easier, so you don't feel like you are constantly in the kitchen. Because I know when we first start out AIP, you're like, you know, your arms are tired from chopping so many vegetables, and it might feel like a new thing, or, you know, a new way of being. And so, so I'll put a link to that. It's just a free little download, and there's some good, it's all AIP compliant. So I'll put that in the link at our video too. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you so much. I think this is amazing information, and I'm so excited for you to share with us tonight. And you're just wonderful. So
you guys,
thank
you so much for having me.
Yes, you're welcome. All right. Bye.
Okay. Bye.